All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Cassandra Launch 131. Wow. So this afternoon, we're going to have a special talk from Obioma Anomnachi, engineer here at Anant. We're going to be going over YugabyteDB developer tools. The hosts for this event are Raul and myself. We are looking for speakers and sponsors for this event. If you're interested in either opportunity, please just reach out to me at the email address listed below, akri@anant.us. We are part of a larger community called Data Community DC, which believes in building an inclusive environment. So no matter your race, gender, or sexual orientation, everyone is welcome and we expect respect to be given to all. Data Community DC is actually made up of a lot of different groups, generally surrounding data. You can find out more about these different groups at the addresses listed below and the Twitter as well. So what do we cover here? We cover everything related to Cassandra, Spark, and Kafka. You could say Cassandra is our bread and butter. If it's your first time here, just take a look at our YouTube. It's pretty clear. If it is your first time here, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, how you found out about this lunch, what you're hoping to learn, and any potential topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Just go ahead and leave that in the bottom of the chat. Grouples, if you have a question, ask it. Obi has let me know that he'd like the questions asked throughout the presentation, and I'll just relay those over to him and we'll answer those along as he goes through or at a stop during the lunch. Please be polite and courteous to others, like I mentioned, and obviously we want you to share what you know with us. This is a community and we're all here to learn. Here at Anant, we design, build, and manage global real-time data and analytics platforms surrounding Cassandra, Spark, and Kafka. I'd like to thank our program sponsors listed below and also our organizational sponsors. You can find out more about them on our website. 15-second announcements. If you have any jobs, meetups, hackathons, conferences, or classes coming up, please leave that below in the chat along with a link in the description. Cassandra Events. We have our weekly Cassandra Lunch coming up and also our Data Engineers Lunch coming up on Monday as well. Nicholas Brackley is going to be speaking at our Data Engineers Lunch this coming Monday. I'm very excited for that. Check out our website and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so that you know whenever we go live with any of these events. Like I mentioned earlier, Cassandra is our bread and butter. Cassandra lunches are available on our YouTube channel. We have a playlist there, a lot of Cassandra content there for you as well, and also a new redesigned look of our Cassandra.Link website, which is a hand-curated set of links curated by us here at Anant. Awesome site. Please check that out. And then finally, our latest Runbook 17 is out. Please do download that. It is free, and I'll be leaving a comment. I'll be leaving a link with that in the comment section. And with that, I will hand it over to our speaker for this afternoon. Obi, over to you.
All right, thanks, Akwi. Screen. All right, as you heard, my name is Obioma Anomnachi. I'm a developer here at Anant. Today's topic that we're going to be covering is Yugabyte developer tools. As mentioned, I prefer to have questions, just post those into the YouTube chat whenever, and Akwi will make sure those get to me during breaks in our presentation. So what we're talking about today is third-party tools, not developed by Yugabyte specifically, that are compatible with Yugabyte. You can use them for things like schema management, database visualization, etc. So starting off, we have to cover what is Yugabyte. So it's an open source distributed SQL database. It has a lot of the advantages being a distributed SQL database with the distributed NoSQL databases that we usually talk about on Cassandra Lunch, things like Cassandra, things like Scylla, including their horizontal scalability, meaning you can scale them out by adding more nodes, and their native replication, which means that you don't have to handle the replication of your data. You set the settings and your database does that for you. But it also has access to a lot of the advantages of using a relational database, including the data modeling stuff like access to joins and ACID transactions, which we heard a little while ago here, I believe at Cassandra Lunch, a little while ago from data stacks that ACID transactions are actually coming to Cassandra. So it currently still lacks them, but in Cassandra 5, we might have access to them. And it does this, Yugabyte maintains both of these advantages by having both a SQL and a CQL API layer, which means that anything you've built for Cassandra will work with the CQL layer, the YCQL SH, and anything you've built for Postgres, because it's actually reusing the query layers from Cassandra and from Postgres in order to furnish those APIs. You can use YCQL SH to okay, so the developer tools. We're basing this talk specifically off a page in the Yugabyte documentation about third-party tools. There is also a part of the Postgres documentation that's about third-party tools. It's obviously much more extensive there, and theoretically, some of those might be compatible with YugabyteDB, but these are ones that are confirmed. And we, on the Cassandra side, we also have our own Cassandra tools website that lists a bunch of potential Cassandra tools that might be compatible with YugabyteDB, but again, these are confirmed by Yugabyte as compatible. And so the developers tools that we're looking at today, generally, if you're using developer tools with your database, they're going to help you simplify and streamline your development and the management of your database. So both developers and administrators can be more productive in terms of working with their databases. Okay, so delving into some specific use cases. When you're on the development side, it can help you create and maintain database schemas. It can help you write your queries. It can help you test performance of those queries. Can enable collaboration with other developers. So rather than you having to send information about what you're doing back and forth, some of these tools can handle that for you and have other developers look in and see what queries you're making and how they work. And it can also help you track changes to your database over time. On the administration side, you can use developer tools to help manage your security, to monitor the performance of your entire database system, not just your queries, to optimize your configurations and do things like alerts when there are issues. If you're doing performance tuning, you can optimize the performance of your database. Again, not just the queries, but the performance in general. It can help you analyze your queries, identify bottlenecks in your systems, and suggest indices on your tables in order to speed up performance in other areas. And then it can also help automate your backup and recovery processes. So not all of these tools can do all these things, but some of them will help you with some or all of those pieces. So starting off, pgadmin, it's a tool meant for Postgres. It's a visual GUI that helps you administer and manage your Postgres databases, but it also works with Yugabyte databases because of the SQL layer. So you can create objects in your database. You can set up connections to databases. So pgadmin, it's a program. You can have several connections set up to several different databases inside that single UI and just access different databases by the click of a mouse. So this is different schemas and databases within a single Postgres install, but also multiple different Postgres installs or Yugabyte clusters can be connected to pgadmin at the same time. Has built-in SQL editor, so if you want to develop queries or import them from somewhere else or test them, that can all be done inside pgadmin. You can run it through a web interface or install locally as an application. And it's compatible with Yugabyte because it's compatible with Postgres. Features include obviously the GUI that we talked about. You can view database statistics and performance metrics, and then create and manage objects like tables, views, and indices inside the tool. And it has built-in support for data import and export to any connected databases. Next tool is Apache Superset, which is a tool for data exploration and visualization. You can basically create charts, create dashboards inside of Superset and view your data as it updates there. So it gives you the ability to query and visualize data that's in Yugabyte. using basic line charts to geospatial charts. So you have access to all of the charts that are currently in Superset, just depending on what data you put into them. You can explore your data without writing complex SQL queries. It actually has a query lab sort of visual query builder helper that you can use inside Superset. And you can view reports and dashboards based on that data also inside Superset. So it's much simpler than trying to explore or visualize your data by writing code. You can quickly visualize stuff that's inside your databases and data warehouses without having to export it to other programs. And obviously, like I said, you can create custom dashboards and reports to visualize that data later on. It also integrates with pgadmin. Okay, Archetype. Archetype is a collaborative database client. So essentially, you can share your query with your entire team. You can use this to help you generate queries and share them with people. You can share your output and combine charts. Make charts and combine them into dashboards, share those with people. It connects to YugabyteDB clusters. Archetype has integrated support for them. And once again, you can also connect multiple databases and clusters. Sorry about that, into the client all at once. So real-time collaboration with your fellow developers, security features that help protect your data, and you can also, efficiently execute your queries from inside Archetype. dbeaver is another database management tool. It's open source, it's free, it's multi-platform, in that it can be installed on multiple platforms, but it's also cross-platform in that it can take in data from all types of databases. We talked previously about using, and one of the very early Cassandra Lunches about using dbeaver with Cassandra, but it also works with Postgres. So you can, sorry, what was I saying? Yeah, so it has support for both the YSQL and the YCQL sides of Yugabyte. So you can explore your Yugabyte YCQL tables by importing those sources with non-JDBC drivers. And then you can connect, did I already say you can connect? You can connect multiple databases and clusters, the same as pgadmin or Archetype. Its GUI is pretty good. And you can do things like SQL editing, data analytics, and visualization all inside dbeaver. Table Plus is a developer console with integrations to databases like Postgres, Cassandra, and Redis. It's free to get started. You can upgrade to a paid license. And it works with YugabyteDB without issues because it's compatible specifically the wire protocol level to the YCQL and YSQL APIs. It has its own interface, and you can manage multiple data and clusters from a single interface. DB Schema is a visual database tool. So the three sort of categories of tool that we talked about are sort of database management solution, which dbeaver and pgadmin and Archetype all fall into. Visualization tools, which Superset and then some functionality from some of the others fall into. And then this DB schema is a little bit unique. It's a visualization tool, sort of, but specifically for your schemas. So you can see the entire data modeling, diagram of whatever data databases you connect to DB schema. And it helps you edit how those entities interact with each other. You can browse data inside the program, see what data is inside those tables. It can help you build your queries and synchronize schemas between systems. All right, it has its own pretty easy to use UI, and it's easy to connect to YugabyteDB. You can connect, they have their own connection sort of wizard that you can put in the details of your YugabyteDB cluster, and it will connect either to a local or remote system. and you can see your entire schema laid out. We'll actually be looking at that one later on in the demo section. SQL Workbench /J is another query tool. You can use it with YugabyteDB or really any other DB. You can run it on any system with Java runtime environment. You can import and export data sets, including inserting data directly in the query result view. You can run your SQL scripts via it. You can use console mode for running individual queries, and it can be connected with either of the Yugabyte APIs on local cluster, and then also on a cloud cluster. Basically, this is another one where the Postgres side of YugabyteDB is supported, and so it connects directly to Yugabyte. And then there's Cassandra Workbench if you want to connect directly to the CQL side of Yugabyte. You can manage your databases, tables, and key spaces, execute CQL statements inside Visual Studio Code. So Cassandra Workbench is very similar to SQL Workbench /J, but this one is a VS Code extension, which helps you set up your interactions with Cassandra from inside VS Code. You can use it to design your databases and query them from inside VS Code. It has autocomplete, it has templates, it has syntax highlighting, it has autocomplete. It can really help you out if you're writing a whole bunch of Cassandra queries. And it's also compatible with Yugabyte. You can also use it to generate new tables and indices and to manage your existing ones. Okay. So we're going to move on to the demo in a little bit. Akwi, any questions so far?
No questions so far.
All right. So for our demo, I picked out two of these that we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at. Those are Superset for data visualization and DB schema for the schema visualization. And what we're going to be using to do this, Yugabyte actually has a number of inbuilt example data sets that you can load into your cluster. And so we're going to be using this YugabyteDB managed cluster that I was able to set up for free. And specifically, we're going to be using their SportsDB example. So if I launch the Cloud Shell, log in. Okay. I actually ran into a slight issue importing the actual data for this. So a lot of the tables that are generated or indices are going to be empty. But we can see because essentially it tried to insert the data row by row and then timed out. So some of these tables are going to be empty, but I'll make sure to look at ones with data in so that we can see those visualized later on. But we'll be able to see the full interconnection of this schema when we look at it in DB schema. But you can sort of tell just because these are named pretty well. If you look at events here, there are a number of other tables also named with events in their name that tell us things about specific sport events and things like that. And then you can see that a lot of these tables also have indices and things created on them. And affiliations is one of the tables that actually populated with data correctly. So if we execute this query, we can see there's data in it as well. So this is actually this is the table we're going to visualize in Superset. You can see it has key here, acting as primary, an ID, a key with the actual name, and then the type. We're going to use Superset to basically group by count, except in a graph on affiliation type. So we're going to see for each affiliation type how many of those are there within this table. And we're going to use Superset to do that. But first, I think we're going to look at DB Schema. So DB Schema is an application that you download to your computer. It's cross-platform, but this is obviously the Windows version. So the first thing we're going to do is connect the database. We're going to choose Postgres here. And then we're going to set up, well, actually, we should name this Yugabyte. And we're going to set up the URL standard. We take, so this host IP or host name comes from the Yugabyte managed cluster. If you go to settings and you scroll down, you can see your host here. So you put that in here. So when you populate this, so I've already worked with DB Schema in the setup for this talk. But when you first pick this, the Postgres, the settings that you get here, they're going to say localhost or something like that here for the host. And then it's going to say that the port is 5432 because that's the standard Postgres port, whereas the standard Yugabyte port for the YCQL API is 5433. And then our database user and password are generated when we create them in Yugabyte. And it has a thing where you can first check if that if there is a database reachable there on that port. And then when you try to select which specific database, it will tell you if you have an error with the authentication. So you can see the databases that we can select here are Postgres, Yugabyte, System Platform, and SportsDB. We're going to pick SportsDB because that's where we imported our data. And when we connect, we tell it to reverse engineer everything within public. So you can see our big list of 100 tables is there. And if we wait for DB Schema to load everything in, analyze all the tables and how they're connected, and generate its graph, we'll see this big representation of our data model. All right. So we can see, like I was talking about, the events table is connected to all these other tables where there are tennis events, states, basketball events, states, events, media, and all of them are connected via, the event ID category or a bunch of other categories. If we zoom out, we can see actually basically all 100 of these tables that were. Come on. Might be getting some slowdown because I'm streaming. But essentially you can see the entire schema laid out before you. And if we were to look for here, you can do things like create virtual tables, create foreign keys, things like that. Basically, you can manipulate your relationships between your tables and save a layout that corresponds to an edited database file. So you have your DB schema model. And you can save that model and you can load it in and you can make edits to it. So you can also create a schema like this from scratch, and then use that to later on define what your database is going to look like. All right, that's DB schema. So now we are going to look at Superset, which I already installed using the Docker Compose method. So we're inside right now the Superset. Superset GitHub repo, which we have downloaded specifically the non-dev section. So even if we made changes to the files that are currently in this repo, they would not show up when we built the Docker container. If you switch to the dev version or switch to a dev branch, you can basically edit any of these files to work with modified versions of Superset. So the first thing we're going to do, although this should already be good, we're going to pull all the prerequisites. Okay, good. Doesn't seem like we have issues there. Redis is not done yet. Any questions while we wait for this to complete? Oh, already done. All right, next step is to bring up the Docker Compose. You're gonna have to wait a little while for all of the individual containers to come up. And then Superset has a web interface that we'll be logging into. And then we'll talk about how to connect it to your YugabyteDB, and then how to load in your data and how to visualize it. Superset also has a bunch of examples already loaded in if you don't want to work to load in data from your own database. So if you just wanted to mess around with the query lab or the data sets or the visualizations inside Superset, you could do that. And it comes up on 8088. All right, so we can see some of these example dashboards, example charts. So you can see that there's different panels here with different parts, with different charts and different visualizations of what's going on. And if we want to load in our own data, first thing we're going to want to do is go to data, create data set. We want Postgres here, picking our public schema. Oh, actually, I already set that up. Maybe I should. Guess I already connected this, so we're not getting the full list. Okay, in order to add database connections, we're going to delete this existing one. Okay, add a database, Postgres. Grab our host name from here. Port is 5433. Database name that we're looking for is SportsDB, and then we have to give it the username and password to be able to log in to our database. Display name, YugabyteDB. Turn SSL on and connect. So first, let's look at the data lab. So obviously you can just type in whatever query you want here. But you can also, oh, wrong one, YugabyteDB is what we want. Public, like I said, we are going to do affiliations. And we can see what the different columns in our table are. So actually what we're just going to do is select star. And it also has autocomplete. You can run your queries from inside here. And this is the same information that we got looking at the Yugabyte Cloud Console earlier. You can also save your query results as a data set. Which means any query that you can actually, I set that up badly. Well, anyway, let's do it from the data sets selection anyway. But basically, any query you want, you can turn into a data set in Superset. All right. Now creating our data set directly. Create data set and go to create chart. All right, now we are on the chart dialog. So like I said, we just want basically the results of a group by count. And so what we're going to do, choose a bar chart, create it. Our x-axis, the column that we want is affiliation type. And the metric that we want is count. And we can just create a chart from here, but you can see there are also a bunch of other things that we can play around with. But you can see we now have this chart. It shows that we have some number. We have 12 conference games, 30 division events, 8 league events, and 8 sports. So if we save this, chart name, and dashboard to save it to. But we're able to save our charts. And then if we create a new dashboard, we can then load in our charts to show there. So if you created your charts in advance, you can go in, you can add them to the dashboard very easily, but you can also create new charts to add from this dashboard screen. All right, that is it for Superset. Any questions?
Still no questions at this time.
All right. I also have PG admin installed. So let's take a quick look at that one, and then we will close out. So PG admin, when I talked about it, I said it has a web interface, or you can install it as a standalone application. In this case, it's installed as a standalone application. It's management tool specifically for Postgres, but also works with Yugabyte. Geez, what did I set here? Okay, good. This one has been terminated. So let's remove this server, add new server, name. Okay, so connection, we have to go grab our host name again. Port is 5433. I believe the maintenance database is Yugabyte. Username. Password. Okay. Any of these that we need to fill in? Yes. Were there any tools / capabilities that surprised you? So some of the features of DB schema were pretty surprising. Like I assumed it was just a visualization tool, so you connect to your database and it shows you your schema visually. But the ability to start from scratch and create an entirely new schema, and the ability to edit your schemas by, like, say, dragging a foreign key into a different table. Those are pretty surprising. For PG admin, well, I had already used it for Postgres previously, so I can't say I was very surprised, but having trouble actually getting a connection here to Yugabyte. I think because we're having issues with SSL. Yeah, so the documentation mentions an SSL tab in the query creation, but obviously that was not there when we were just looking at it. So this is something that documentation needs to be updated for this. But it's clearly getting some information off the table, off the server, because it can tell us that we have our public schema, that we have our Postgres database, which is created by Yugabyte automatically. We have our sports DB one, which we created. It just can't see the data inside of it properly. But yeah, the good thing about pgadmin is that you can see information over time about what's going on inside your database, which allows you to identify and troubleshoot problems, and also just sort of monitor how much things are being used. So you could theoretically scale up your Yugabyte cluster if you notice that a lot of queries were coming in. All right, that is about all I have for today, unless there are any more questions.
So while we close out, if you have any questions, please do leave them in the chat for Obi. Just a couple housekeeping items. I left a link to our latest runbook in the comment section. Please do check that out. It is free. Also, please make sure you're subscribed to this channel. If you're watching it after the fact, please do give us a like. If you're enjoying the content, subscribe to the channel so you're aware when we go live. We do have a lot of events coming up for you towards the tail end of this month and headed into May. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody that's joining us and everybody that's watching a little bit later. Special thanks to Obi for another fantastic talk. And we'll see you guys same time, same place next week. Thanks, everyone, and take care.